When I stood in my new mansion, looking out at the lush garden, I felt like I had regained a part of my lost life. My life was no longer controlled by those who did not appreciate me. And I no longer had to endure the words filled with blame and reproach from the people I had loved and sacrificed everything for. The sense of freedom, when I was no longer a financial tool in their eyes, was truly a gift I never expected. The days of betrayal taught me many lessons. I realized that sometimes, we have to make ourselves the number one priority in our own lives. A mother's love, a wife's love, is unconditional, but that doesn't mean we have to allow ourselves to be exploited to the point of having nothing left. I learned how to love myself, protect myself, and most importantly, how to rise again when life knocked me down. My story is not just about being betrayed and finding myself again. It is a message about the power of independence, about regaining faith in ourselves after falling. Everyone can restart their life. It's never too late to begin a new chapter. The important thing is that we must have the courage to let go of what doesn't deserve us and seek what truly matters. Looking back, I no longer see myself as a victim. I created my own opportunities and didn't let the pain and disappointments drag on. I understand now that no one can live our life for us. If I didn't change, if I didn't stand up, I would forever live in the past and in the mistakes of others. I want to share my story with you, not to seek sympathy, but to remind you that we should never give up. Life can be tough, full of challenges, but as long as we are persistent and confident, nothing is impossible to overcome. I hope my story can be a source of motivation for those who feel stuck. So you know there's always a second chance, as long as you dare to stand up and restart. If you feel like you're stuck in a hopeless situation, don't give up. Find strength within yourself and do what you know is right. Don't let anyone define your life for you. You deserve a better life. And if I can do it, so can you. The days of betrayal taught me many lessons. I realized that sometimes, we have to make ourselves the number one priority in our own lives. A mother's love, a wife's love, is unconditional, but that doesn't mean we have to allow ourselves to be exploited to the point of having nothing left. I learned how to love myself, protect myself, and most importantly, how to rise again when life knocked me down. My story is not just about being betrayed and finding myself again. It is a message about the power of independence, about regaining faith in ourselves after falling. Everyone can restart their life. It's never too late to begin a new chapter. The important thing is that we must have the courage to let go of what doesn't deserve us and seek what truly matters. Looking back, I no longer see myself as a victim. I created my own opportunities and didn't let the pain and disappointments drag on. I understand now that no one can live our life for us. If I didn't change, if I didn't stand up, I would forever live in the past and in the mistakes of others. I want to share my story with you, not to seek sympathy, but to remind you that we should never give up. Life can be tough, full of challenges, but as long as we are persistent and confident, nothing is impossible to overcome. I hope my story can be a source of motivation for those who feel stuck. So you know there's always a second chance, as long as you dare to stand up and restart. If you feel like you're stuck in a hopeless situation, don't give up. Find strength within yourself and do what you know is right. Don't let anyone define your life for you. You deserve a better life. And if I can do it, so can you. After being cast out of my home, I found myself standing alone in the aftermath of betrayal and disappointment. But rather than letting these negative emotions consume me, I decided that I wouldn't allow my life to be defined by the actions of others. As I reflected on my situation, I asked myself, what will I do now? Is this the end for me? And in that moment, I realized something important. I had been wrong to believe that my worth was tied only to my family. I had another chance to start over, and I was going to seize it. For years, I had lived entirely for my family, sacrificing my own dreams and desires for their sake. I dedicated myself to making sure my children had everything they needed. But in the process, I lost sight of the fact that I too needed to live for myself. I had put my life on hold for so long, always giving and never receiving. In the end, they saw me as nothing more than a tool, a person to provide for them. When I lost my job, they didn't comfort me. Instead, they showed nothing but frustration and anger, thinking only about the money they no longer had. They wanted me to keep working, regardless of my health or the toll it had taken on me. But I had to realize that I couldn't continue living under the control of people who didn't value me as a person. Making the decision to let go wasn't just about leaving behind a home, it was about letting go of an entire part of my life. For so long, I believed that family was everything, that it was the one place where I would always find love and support. But now, I understood that family isn't the only source of peace and happiness. It was a hard lesson, but I had to accept that only I could create the life I deserved. I had given everything to them, and it was time to take back what was mine. I walked out of that house, uncertain of what the future held, but sure of one thing: I couldn't go back. The feeling of freedom, though unfamiliar, was intoxicating. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living for myself. It was a strange and exhilarating feeling. The weight of obligation was gone, and I was free to do whatever I wanted with my life. I made the decision to rebuild, to create a new future for myself. I wasn't going to let my past define me. I had sacrificed so much, and now, it was time for me to take charge of my own happiness. The first step was securing my financial future. I had very little left in savings, but I wasn't afraid. I knew that, with the right effort, I could turn things around. I reached out to old colleagues, friends, and people I had worked with over the years. Not everyone could help, but I discovered that there were still people who cared about me. People who didn't see me as a burden. They were willing to lend a hand, and that was all I needed to start anew. One of my former colleagues, a lawyer, helped me with the legal process of claiming the inheritance I didn't even know existed. It was a gift from my late employer, someone who had recognized my hard work and dedication. I had worked for her for many years, and she had seen the effort I put into my job. To my surprise, she left me everything she had, a fortune that would change my life forever. When I found out about it, I was both overwhelmed and grateful. For the first time, I realized that all the sacrifices I had made weren't in vain. With the inheritance, I finally had the financial freedom I needed. I could now afford to build a life for myself, separate from the expectations of others. I didn't want to just buy a new home, I wanted to create a new life. A life that was mine to control. I purchased a beautiful villa, not out of necessity, but because I deserved it. It was a place where I could finally feel at peace. A place where I could live for myself, not for anyone else. The moment I walked into that villa, I felt a sense of accomplishment and joy that I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just the beautiful home, it was the realization that I was no longer tied down by the demands of others. I had finally created a life that was my own, one that wasn't dictated by the needs and expectations of my family. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe easy. No more sacrifices, no more feeling invisible or unappreciated. I had done this for myself. But not everyone was happy for me. As soon as Julia found out about my new home, she immediately contacted me. I didn't expect an apology, but I didn't anticipate that she would try to pull me back into her life either. She wanted to visit, and then, as expected, asked for money. It wasn't the first time I had been asked for financial help. But this time, I was different. I didn't feel guilty. I refused, not because I didn't want to help, but because I realized I had to stop being used. I had given everything to her, but now it was time for me to take control. In a phone call, Julia said, "You only need to help a little." But I wasn't that helpless mother anymore. I had to cut ties with her for good. I wasn't angry with her, I was just done. I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. And I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into continuing to support her financially. If I stayed in that relationship, I knew I would only be a financial tool, and that wasn't something I could accept anymore. I didn't feel guilty for severing ties with Julia. If anything, I felt relieved. I finally realized that my love for her had to be balanced with love for myself. I had spent so many years giving, and in return, all I received was manipulation and selfishness. I was finally free from that cycle. I wasn't just living for my family anymore, I was living for me. Looking back, I don't see myself as a victim anymore. I see a woman who learned the value of independence and self-respect. Life had taught me many harsh lessons, but it also taught me that I have the power to change my destiny. No matter how difficult things were, I could rise above them. I had the strength to start over. And that's exactly what I did. With a clear mind and determination, I began to rebuild my life. The villas I bought were more than just houses, they were symbols of my strength and resilience. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I was living life on my terms. And that was the most powerful feeling in the world. From that moment on, I no longer lived in the shadow of past sacrifices. I lived for myself. And it was the most freeing decision I ever made. As I stand in the peaceful solitude of my new home, I realize just how much has changed. The weight of years spent living for others, of sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of my family, is finally gone. The house, the fresh start, they represent more than just a physical space, they are symbols of my rebirth. For the first time in a long while, I can breathe without feeling the suffocating pressure of expectations and obligations. I've let go of the past. And now, I am free to live for myself. This journey has been both painful and empowering. I've learned that self-worth isn't determined by how much we give to others or how much we sacrifice for those we love. At some point, we all need to stop and ask ourselves, what about me? We can't pour from an empty cup. And for far too long, I had been pouring myself out without ever thinking about refilling myself. The realization that I am more than just a mother, more than just a provider, was a revelation. I am a woman, deserving of love, respect, and happiness on my own terms. Letting go of the toxic dynamics that held me back wasn't easy. It meant breaking free from the emotional chains of guilt and obligation. It meant walking away from people who had once been my everything but had now become my biggest burden. It meant accepting that some relationships are not worth saving, no matter how much you want them to be. In doing so, I found my own strength. It's a strength I didn't even know I had. A strength that allowed me to move on and start again. The decision to cut ties with Julia was hard. She is my daughter, and no matter what happened, the love I had for her never disappeared. But love should never be a one-sided affair. I had given her everything I had. And yet, she saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. She didn't see me as a person with my own needs, dreams, and desires. She saw me as a tool. And I refused to continue being used. Walking away from that was liberating. I realized that I didn't need anyone's validation to feel good about myself. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I didn't need to be constantly sacrificing my own well-being for the sake of others. My life, my happiness, it's all mine to shape. Today, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I've reclaimed control over my life and my future. I've learned to stand up for myself, to demand respect, and to give myself the love I deserve. I'm no longer defined by my role as a mother or a wife, or by the sacrifices I've made. I am defined by who I choose to be in this moment. The future is mine to write. And this time, I'm writing it for myself. Thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you've been inspired, if you've found a piece of yourself in this journey, I encourage you to take the first step towards living for you. It's never too late to start over, to take back control of your life. Remember, you deserve to be happy, to be free, and to live on your own terms. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like mine. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Take care.